How are you doing? This Martin from Gardens for Life. In this video we're just going to give you a bit of a quick tour of our gardens, just to give you an update and to encourage you to come and take one of our walk and talks, which is actually a detailed 2-hour walk where you get to ask questions, and we'll show you all the things that worked for us and that didn't work, and all of the different various methods and techniques that we use to establish our gardens. And also you get to pick a few plants at the end of the tour as well. Check out our membership if you'd like to support what we do, and we'd highly appreciate you considering becoming a member of Gardens for Life. So we'll just put a link below for you to have a look and check out all the benefits. There's a bumblebee. So the first garden we set up was actually the wood chip island. In the beginning we didn't really know where to start when this was only a field, so we started right in the middle here where the wood chip island is now. So we started with about 400 square meters or a tenth of an acre, and we extended it by another 200 square meters. So it's quite a substantial area now, and we have mostly planted perennials now. We've been transitioning from annuals in the first year into mostly or all perennials now. For example, berry bushes, perennial flowers and fruit trees and nut trees, and basically it's like a mini forest garden as such. You could call it a food forest if you want to. We also have some insectary plants here that attract beneficial insects. For example, these Portuguese kale plants are actually going to flower now and attracting all the bumblebees and other pollinators. We basically just covered the whole area with cardboard, and we did a lasagna garden, which means to add cardboard and a layer of compost and a layer of wood chips on top. And you can see the results here. Actually really low maintenance and highly productive garden, about 600 square meters, which is about an eighth of an acre. And it's done really well for us, and we get to harvest not only plants and some fruits and berries, but also some perennial cuttings as well. And the best part is it's basically taken us less than 10 hours per year to actually maintain it. And that is really the key, to make it as low maintenance as possible so that you have time to worry about sowing and planting and harvesting instead of digging and weeding. In the wood chip island we actually have a path in the middle, and mainly just berry bushes and fruit trees and tuberous plants like Jerusalem artichokes planted all around. Check out all the flowers on the Josta berry. Can't wait to try those. It's a different variety now, a new one. We haven't actually eaten those yet. Strawberries scattered throughout the wood chip island, different varieties in different places, so that we know which ones are which. We always have the old Egyptian mint. Look at the aronia berries, they're actually growing too. Really good one for vitamin C. Some people call aronia or sea buckthorn the citrus of the cold temperate climate, and they're not wrong, I tell you. They're so sour when you eat them, but you can get used to them, or you can mix them with a bit of sugar and make a syrup. A lot of bumblebee activity around these Portuguese kales. We also have comfrey. That's going to be full of insects once it flowers. And we even have some purple sprout and broccoli as well. Did you ever wonder what happens if you plant garlic somewhere permanent and you never harvest it? Well, here's garlic 3 years old now. It just basically makes a big huge cluster. We'll go for another year and then we'll see. We might dig up one of the clusters and see and make a video of it. So garlic actually is perennial when you think about it, because it just keeps on clumping. I'd say it's the same as shallots and a lot of the other, actually all varieties of garlic, and some of the onions as well, especially the Egyptian walking onions and the clumping potato onions as well. They do the same thing. Here's some Jacob's ladders, which is a lovely flower, perennial. You can see there's a number of fruit trees here, even some buddleias. You can see there's very few weeds on the ground here. These are some currants. Look how the wind actually blew them over. They fell over and rooted over there. And now they're growing lots of straight shoots like that. And we're going to get a whole lot of berries. And these weeping willow, or sorry, these curly corkscrew willows are lovely. These are 2 years old now. You can see here the grass does actually penetrate a little bit into our border, so that's why you need to have a little bit of plastic just coming up as a root barrier, just like we do here on our wall garden. You can see there's we just folded it up the way and then put some wood chips on the side, and that stops the grass from growing in. We've got Jerusalem artichokes here. 2 different varieties, 4 or 5 beds full. Here we have some vegetables, and we need to clean those up a little bit. And some more garden beds that are ready to be planted up. Evening primroses at the edges here. We always plant some perennial flowers that are beneficial to the insects. For example, valerian and oregano, which can also be used for the kitchen. And there's some lupin and some mallows as well. You can see the elephant garlic right here. That was planted last October, or September actually. And we let this red Russian kale actually go to seed. It's self-seeded here for the last 2 years. And we're going to just let it go and let it keep going to adapt to our climate better and better. We've got apple trees that we've grafted ourselves, and more plants from cuttings, shallots. We also have some potato onions back there. These are some josta berries, Egyptian walking onions, various different garlic, and Jerusalem artichokes. If you remember the path we have on our wall garden, we'd like to make the same kind of path with wood chips and a bit of plastic along here, just to block the grass from the path here, but also to keep our feet dry in case if it ever rains, which does happen in Ireland, of course. And once we have a path all the way around, we can actually just walk all around the garden to any place without getting wet feet in the grass here on the path. Look at the rhubarb going to seed. We don't mind. It'll attract a whole lot of insects and we'll get some seeds from them. We have a number of fruiting bushes here, and we're going to make more garden beds here. So we're going to flatten this out and fork it a little bit and add a little bit of seaweed dust and volcanic rock dust, and make our path along the side here, and then our paths this way, just 2.5 foot apart, same as the wall garden. And then we're away. We have another 20 garden beds about 4 meters long, or what's that in feet, 13-14 feet. It'll be well protected too, because it's right beside the shelter belt. Hopefully the shelter belt won't block too much of the sun coming from the west side. Mainly the westerly sun is actually more important to plants than the easterly sun, because the morning sun actually kills a lot of the fruiting tree blossoms, and especially during a late frost, and that's what actually kills them, believe it or not. Flowers don't actually get harmed because of freezing, but mainly because the sun actually thawing them too quickly. So if you are planting fruit trees, just plant them somewhere where they're not so exposed to easterly sun. And of course the morning sun has to cut through the mist first, and that's why the evening sun is more valuable, because it's cleaner and more powerful sunlight. Believe it or not, this shelter belt here was actually planted before we started any gardens on this side. It's now coming into its 4th season, and I have a feeling it's going to grow really feckin' huge this year. It really took off last year, I believe, because of the compost that we put down here, but also because its roots have actually established now. This is our front garden, which is a lasagna style garden, same as the wood chip island, which is right over here. So this will bring in the insects too, and actually take care of our garden beds here along the side of the shelter belt. Lots of perennials, lots of biennials. Mainly berry bushes, perennial flowers here. I mean, there's a lot to say about each of the different varieties and all the rest, but I don't want to make this video too long, because it becomes impossible to manage. I just want to give you a quick overview of our gardens. Look at these Cowboys toilet paper. These are Great Mullen, they're also known as, and they make huge 2.5 to 3 meter tall, or 8 to 10 foot tall flowering stalk, and that brings in the insects, and that can be used in medicinal ways too, or actually as a torch like they did in the medieval times. Well, it's also a lovely plant to have in the garden. Also planted some Californian poppies that have self-seeded. Check it out. Here they go. We don't mind, we'll leave them there. They're not too invasive once the wood chip cover has been applied. You only get so much germination. Especially weed seeds don't do too well when they land. This is lemon balm. Lemon balm is a really good herb to have in the garden. It's really good as a sedative in tea, and it's really healthy to drink, but also it's really good because the limonella in it, it's a chemical that, citronella, that insects don't like. So you can actually put it, just rub a bit on yourself, or put a little twig on your ear, and then the flies will actually stay away from you in the summer. And it actually smells really nice to us. Here's some walnuts. We have 4 different walnut trees planted here, and this is a artichoke plant that's only less than a year old, and it's going to really grow huge this year. And the giant poppy, the oriental poppies. We've also got a number of fruit trees here from Irish Seed Savers. These are apple trees. We have 9 apple trees, new ones planted along here, along the front, so hopefully they'll create a bit of shelter too. And in between we'll have all these berry bushes and ground cover like rhubarb and strawberries and various other plants, and mint too. And then we'll have the shelter belt protecting us from the wind, because the west side of course is on this side here. And the idea is when you have crops well protected from the wind, they'll grow about twice as fast, especially trees. So did Hobie Hemingway actually say. And here we have some new willow planted just this winter, and check it out. Look at that. Already starting up, already rooting into the ground. Isn't that great? And a few poplars in there too. Here's a few more to plant. You can see the shelter belt has come a long way, but we do need to mulch it in order to keep the grass down among the trees, so that they'll actually grow much faster, and we won't have the grasses causing havoc, spreading seeds onto our garden beds as well. Of course, we have a willow arch which is not quite finished yet, but it'll be a little tunnel. And this greenhouse here is actually an old mushroom tunnel, and we got the good 1000 gauge plastic for it. We have a communal area in the front here, or a work area, and then a planting area in the middle, which is kind of like our little super dry warm food forest, if you want to call it that. Check on how dry it is. It is very, very dry. Specimen area, the indoor, micro indoor food forest, as we like to call it. But it's mostly figs and some apios, which is a ground nut in the corner there, some saltbush and lemon verbena, some Chinese yam or cinnamon vine, it's also known as, how tall they grow. And these are the Madeira vine or heart leaf. You can see they kind of are shaped like a heart. They're very thick leaves, so they're kind of like spinach. Very nice to eat. There's the apios over there. They're coming on strong. That's their second year in here. And we had those from about 3 or 4 years ago. These are some yacons. And of course we do interplant some other plants in between. For example, goji berry and a few fig trees here. These are the trifolia. Really nice to eat, these ones. And this is our water collection for the greenhouse. We have a gutter here into these IBCs. And you can see how the gutter is attached to this wood here. This garden here is beside the greenhouse, so it actually catches a lot of the water, the runoff from the greenhouse. So even in the summertime when there's a drought, it actually never really goes dry in this part of the garden. Last season we grew mostly oca here and other tubers, and also a whole lot of pumpkins. And there's a separate video on the pumpkins if you'd like to take a look at it. But it is definitely an interesting garden to look at because it was built with minimal effort and cardboard, basically just market garden style beds, and we just smothered the grass with cardboard beforehand, and we had compost put on top. And finally we'll show you a little bit about our nursery as well. We actually start plants from cuttings and we pot those on or grow them in garden beds. So here are some of the cuttings. Keeping plants in pots is something that you really need to consider as a time effort because it does take a bit of maintenance in the summer, as in keeping them watered. So you have to consider that. It's handy to keep them mobile during the growing season though, so that you don't have to do everything bare root and move it in the winter. A video tour really can't do the garden any justice. What I mean by that is that in order to experience all aspects of the garden, you really need to be here firsthand, and even to see how all of the different plants work together with the ecosystem in our garden, and how we're creating our own little ecosystem and microclimate as well. As you can imagine, the garden looks very different at different times of year, especially throughout the different seasons. And now that we're in spring, it's definitely getting warmer now and everything is starting to grow, which is lovely to see because a lot of the flowers are actually coming out now too. There's always something to plant or harvest any time of year basically, and there is certainly always something to see. So if you want to come for a walk and talk, it'll be 2 hours, and it'll be a detailed tour of our gardens, and you get to experience it firsthand and ask questions, and you get to pick a few plants at the end too. So take a look at our page. I'll put a link below. Thanks for watching and all the best. Bye bye.